Well, hello everyone and happy Australia Day for this very special webinar for AS Purposeful. My name is Jo Casamento and I'll be your host today. We are just so excited you could join us. We also have very special panelists Judy Singer and David Harper joining us today. But first, on this special day of reflection, I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, of elders past and present and emerging on which this event takes place. I also want to acknowledge the people with us today with lived experience of mental health challenges and recovery, as well as those of us who have been their carers, their parents, their friends, their family, their allies. We've got a really special event for you today, guys. It will run for about an hour. We are recording and we will send you a replay in the coming days with some more information about the new Aspire service that we're here to launch. We'll be hearing stories from people in the neurodiverse community, amazing stories, as we celebrate the theme for this Australia Day, which is reflect, respect, celebrate. We're all part of the story. We'll also tell you all about a new free course that will help your neurodiverse young person's participation in the community. It's been specially designed for community groups. Look out for a poster that will be emailed to you explaining all about this amazing course. I promise you're going to want to look at this. We also have some time for Q&As. You can submit a question at any time during this whole webinar via the Q&A box on your screen, and we will answer those towards the end. I promise you, no question is too silly. That's what I like to say. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in. So to start off, a little bit about us. AS Purposeful, who are presenting today's event, are a not-for-profit social enterprise that delivers various programs to facilitate community integration for the 6.1% of Australians who have different strengths and challenges. These, of course, include people who have autism with support needs, sometimes called high-functioning autism or Asperger's syndrome, and people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, much easier to say, ADHD, of course. Our panelists today are David Harper and Judy Singer. Now, David is a not-for-profit executive with a background in mental health, autism, and community organising. David is also the founder and chair of AS Purposeful. Judy Singer is an esteemed academic and activist who is best known for coining the concept of neurodiversity. Judy was also the co-founder of a social club for young people with autism. It's fantastic to have you both here. Little wave there, fantastic. As a reminder, you can enter a question into the Q&A box at any time and we'll have the panelists answering near the end of the webinar. So don't be shy, pop them in. I promise you, as I said, nothing's too silly. Now, earlier today, we interviewed two fantastic parents of young neurodiverse people to hear their stories. We'll first hear from Ian and then from the lovely David. Let's take a look. Good afternoon, Ian. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the neurodiverse person in your life.
Sure. He's a 24-year-old. He's studying a double degree locally. He's about midway through it. He likes to play board games and online games with his friends. And he likes to do that face-to-face as well. He enjoys birds and music. He's got a lot of training in music, but his real interest is in mathematics.
Fantastic. Now, COVID has made life difficult for everyone, as we know, but especially so for neurodiverse people. What sort of small achievements have you been able to celebrate during the year, despite all of the challenges we've faced?
Yeah, it's been an up and down year, but despite that, he has been able to develop quite a bit of resilience, I think. That's been through a number of things. We've had a worker starting to work with him this year, and she's been excellent. He's the best to his ability, he's maintained his contacts with his brother and with his friends, and that's been very difficult. And he's been, they're the main things that he's done to really help himself get through it. And things that would have thrown him for six, like his pet dying, they certainly knocked him about, but they didn't really affect him to the same extent it would have last year. So I consider those to be real achievements of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, some positives, a silver lining perhaps. So, Ian, you mentioned there that one of the things that helped during such difficult times was getting the help of or the assistance of a carer. I just wondered, for other families out there who may be toying with the idea, and, you know, obviously there's an expense and all those things, but weighing it up, what is it about the carer that really you would say has made a big difference?
Well, the main function that she serves is psychosocial support.
Mm-hmm.
She served as a sounding board for when he's thinking problems through, not just his university problems, but also social problems. He asked her what he should do under certain in group work, and that's just like, if it's not going well, he might say, "Would this be, you know, what do I do? This is what's happening. This is what I'm thinking of doing. Is that the right thing?" And it's just I suppose, a reality board, a reality check.
Sounding board,
yeah, sounding board.
Mm.
She's also been instrumental in putting a bit more structure in his life, and some exercise as well. So, you've got to get the right person though, and that can take some time.
I'm sure.
The money, and the money thing, we paid for her because we could just see the benefit of it. But once he was on the NDIS, it wasn't an expense that came out of our pocket, and the payback in any case was totally worth it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic to know. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for opening up about all of those things, Ian. And happy Australia Day.
Thank you. You too.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to chat to you. I know you're very involved with your children and your young neurodiverse people, not person. You've got, I believe, 2 family members that are in the neurodiverse space and in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your beautiful children? I know you're very busy. Give us a bit of a rundown.
Sure, no worries. Thanks, Jo, for the opportunity. Yes, in my family, obviously, my wife, Amanda, and 3 children. Joseph, who's 19. Joseph has autism and a little bit of OCD in there as well, but that's sort of, we're dealing with that quite well now. Jesse, my middle son, so he's 15, and Chantal, my daughter, who's 9, who's also on the spectrum. So they're the 3 in the house. It's a busy, noisy, fun house. It's crazy at times, but that's what life's about, isn't it? Get thrown a challenge and you've got to take it on. So, and yeah, we've been on a big journey with Joseph since he was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, when he was just a little guy living up in Sydney. And that turned our world around, really. I was up there for work, and, you know, Joseph's behaviour started to change, and, you know, one thing after another, and, you know, he was really sliding into, you know, a pattern of behaviour that wasn't right, and that we needed to take hold of that. So, yeah, that's a long time ago now, 2005, I think it was, somewhere around there. So pack everything up and come home to family and whatever, and take it on from there. Yeah.
Oh, and that's the reason why you moved. So you
had
that support around you.
Yeah, well, we are Melbourne people originally, but opportunity came up for me to work in Sydney, and so Amanda was up there. She's having a great time on Bondi Beach and Coogee Beach and all that, and having a great time with Joseph, and, you know, play groups in Randwick and all the good spots up there, Centennial Park, and I was working near Fox Studios there in a role there, and yeah, everything was going great for us, and then little Joseph started to change, and yeah, he's a beautiful kid, still is, and always will be. He's a magnificent person, and yeah, his strength is his soul and his character that's he's carried him through. So yeah, that's how he is. If you meet him, you just love him, and he's just a pure personality, and people are privileged really to get to know Joseph. So that's my experience with him anyway.
Oh, I love the way you talk about your kids. It's like your eyes light up and your smile lights up. It's beautiful, beautiful to watch, even through Zoom. So well done to you. Now, you mentioned challenges there, and obviously life throwing you curveballs. COVID has been a massive life curveball for everyone, but I think especially so for neurodiverse people. It makes it even more complicated.
Yeah.
What sort of small achievements have you and Amanda been able to celebrate during the year despite all of these challenges, extra challenges?
Yeah, sure. I think what we've done is really just see it for what it is and apply common sense and not get wrapped up in the emotion. Obviously, children, just as a little bit older, but you can get a lot of fear. So I think you need to stick to the facts. And outside of that, we've tried to maintain a fairly regular household. Joseph's involved in a number of organisations. It's Flying Fox, typically run camps and weekends away. So for the early part of that, they had to put brakes on that. But what they did is use the technology. Zoom came to support Flying Fox, and they ran fantastic programs online. So they just had, you're limited by imagination. So they would run, bingo nights, they'd run talent shows, quizzes. I'd come home from work and Joseph would be dancing to goodness knows what song in the lounge room and jumping up and down. They had one of their members is a really good Pilates instructor. So she ran Pilates programs and exercise programs. So he didn't lose base or touch base with any of those guys physically, but online they were there 2 or 3 times a week for about 45 minutes, and he had a ball. So, and then as things eased up and we got a grip on it, then they could start going away on some sort of weekends, like without the overnight component, and then just come home again and keep it safe that way. So that was, he was actually really fortunate, I guess. He's been involved probably 5 years now. So he's he was a little fellow when he joined, and he was scared and all sorts of dramas with his health and everything, and they've really just dug him out of a terrible hole that he was in. We're doing our bit. He's grown and grown and grown. He's a young man now, 19, and strapping big fella, and he's really kicking along nicely with lots of things that he's doing. So
that's so fantastic.
I could talk for hours, Jo, about Joseph. Chantal, my daughter, obviously in grade 3, homeschooling, more of a challenge for her. She's lovely, and she has ASD, but she's an amazing artist. Like Chantal, I'm looking at my wall here in my office, and it's a gallery of her work. And it's just hilarious. Like if I turn my camera around,
can you spin us around?
That's all her work. And she just threw herself into her art. Her drawings have kept her sane, I guess. That's her world, that she expresses herself on paper. My mum actually put one on the shirt the other day, and I made a card out of one because she loved it so much. And Chantal just draws. It's just how she expresses what's going on in her mind, what she sees, and how she sees people relate to each other. It's fantastic. So it's my second job, managing Joseph and Chantal's stuff and all the NDIS and Flying Fox, and another busy job.
Very busy.
It keeps me sane, helping him. That way I feel like I'm in control of it, and Amanda does her bit. She shuttles around everywhere with appointments and whatever, and we just get it done.
You mentioned Joseph had a tinge of OCD as well, and I just wondered, because I know for a lot of children, the anxiety of and all this testing and fear of infecting grandparents and all of that thing. Yeah. With being on the spectrum as well as coupled with the OCD, did that become a sort of like testing anyone before they walked in the door kind of thing, or was that not something that sort of overtook his?
Yeah, he's interesting. We had to. I mean, with Joseph's journey with that, he yeah, we spent a lot of time teaching him to shake hands with people, like at church,
Oh,
shake hands, and we got him all the way to doing all that. And now he's like
no, it's elbow tapping. Yeah.
And now it's like you've got to untrain it. It was kind of like, no, you can't do it now. Joseph's like, what? So this elbow business and high fives. To get Joseph to do a high five was a massive challenge when he was a youngster. And we do fist pumps. Flying Fox worked on the fist bump, and we got to that. Now he goes to church and he's got people hugging him, and it's hilarious. And so that's, yeah, he's back. But in those days, his OCD is really, you know, anxiety around getting sick and going back to how he was, and fearful of germs that in his mind that were going to make him crook. And he's battled that internally a lot. It really did set him back for a while, and yeah, we've had to replace all that and just push it to a corner for him so that he can have fun and give him a lot of opportunities. And as I said, the Flying Fox guys, I can't speak highly enough of what they've done in terms of giving his mind other things to focus on rather than, you know, germs and whatever else was upsetting him. And then his other team as well. He's also involved in a few other little groups that have helped him. And his school was awesome as well. Like, he was in a special school at that time, finishing off senior year. You know, he was school captain, so he had responsibilities there. You know, you had James Molino come through, who's the acting premier, the education minister, and he loved showing him proud of his school and proud of his staff. That just, when he marched out of there, it was a COVID sort of safe graduation for Joseph, but it may as well have been the MCG with 1 million people at it, watching, you know, the emotion in the room for Joseph to be marching out. You know, he knows everyone in the place, down to the gardener, the bus drivers. He's a people person, and that's just how he rolls. And I just love watching him get around people. And now he's into athletics. I haven't mentioned that, but I've got him running. We went up to Byron Bay for Joseph's 18th, but he was 19, but he missed that because it was all screwed up. But and we stayed up there, and I thought we'll do something special for his 18th, and so we went for, you know, horse riding on the beach and all that, and then we went for a run, and we're just running along. He just took off, and I thought, wow, hang on, I'm going to chase you, and he didn't let me catch him. I thought, we've got to do something with this. And then the Paralympics in Tokyo came on. We were watching that, and then my little brain's like joining the dots. Is like, hang on, this is what we got to do. And then I started looking around, and I found the Paralympic group, obviously, and then there's Sports Inclusion, who are the Victorian body. So I've got him all registered in that, and then they've helped me with AS Victoria to get him a coach, who's this guy Jamie. He's a fantastic guy. So, and he's never worked with someone like Joseph. He's used to training, you know, able-bodied athletes to run like the wind, and he's gone off and researched how to. I'm just watching how he talks. I get out of the way now, let him do his thing, and how he's beautiful around Joseph, and how he teaches him and breaks it all down for him. And, you know, like simple things like if there's like, you know, leaning on a fence to stretch, you know, swing your leg and all that sort of stuff. Jamie's like, Joseph wouldn't touch the fence. He's like, righto, okay, how do I, let's just put a towel on it. Real simple, bang, righto, no worries. Joseph straight away, no problems. Just really, I didn't make a big deal of it, just quietly thought about it and simple things. And now Joseph's on the ground. He wouldn't sit on the ground and do stretches. He's doing that.
Oh, and now he'll actually
just all these little things that he took through, because he's got,
fascinating.
they've won his trust, I guess. And it's a funny thing, because he's got to battle himself and then trust that what they're telling him won't hurt him or whatever he's feeling in his mind. And then he just, they say jump and he just goes. And I can't keep up with him anymore. I'm reasonably quick, but he's just got this in his mind now, and he's like far lap, just runs and runs and runs. So he's fast. He's had 2 races, so he's had a 100-meter sprint and a 200-meter sprint on the weekend, and he came second by 300 of a second or something. He won his first race, and he's the big grin on its face is just makes my day. And he's training 3 nights a week, and he's got an awesome coach and an awesome team there. And yeah, he's really just, you know, in a good
David, I
space.
think I need to get him to hang out with my 17-year-old son who can't seem to get off the lounge or pick a table up off the floor. So we might need to get Joseph over.
Yeah, he's really loving running. He's found something that, you know, it's just him versus the clock and the other people in the race. There's no, you know, he runs for the team, but it's really struck. You can see him. He's gone, oh, hang on, I'm good at this. I can run, and he can run well. And so we've got to get him some racing spikes now. He's got nice runners, but we're going to get him the right shoes and just keep training. And you know, then there's, you know, Paralympics. He can hopefully do that and just keep punching for the stars. So that's
Love
my
that. Punching for the stars, a lesson for us all. Well, good luck with Joseph, with the beautiful Jessie, and the gorgeous Chantal, whose artworks I can't wait to see someday, and love to the rest of your beautiful family. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
No, it's good on you. Appreciate it.
Oh, I think I just threw my son under the bus there. Sorry, Max. So just a quick reminder as well, if you have any questions, to put them in the Q&A box. We'd love to hear from you. We do have our panel of experts to answer them, so put them far away, any questions at all. Now, let's hear from David. David is the founder and chair of AS Purposeful. David's been working on this unique evidence-based course designed to help young neurodiverse people to participate in community-based social groups. Here's David. So David, before we talk about the course, what are your thoughts on the stories that have been shared with us here today by the parents watching?
I love these parents so much, and particularly the ones that have just been on, because it's really great to hear that young people have been able to achieve so much despite the pandemic from the last 2 years, despite all of the drama we've all had to go through. It's really lovely to hear that they've actually been able to do all of that anyway, despite those challenges. As much as anything else, it's been a tough year for all of us, and so if anybody was going to risk being left behind, it's young people such as the ones we've just been hearing about. And I think it's really great that they've actually been able to thrive and move forward. And so then the other thing to say then, Jo, is I think it's really important for those parents and also the ones watching to just reflect on how much they've been able to contribute to the growth of their young people. Often you find that they're so busy thinking about what needs to be done and doing the things that need to be done and worrying about the things that need to be done in the future, that they forget about all of the good things they've been able to do to facilitate that growth. And so I think it's just an opportunity also for everybody to step back and give themselves a bit of a pat on the back for what they've been able to do. I think that's really important as well, Jo.
Absolutely. A big round of applause for all those fantastic parents with us today. 100%, I'm in awe. Tell me, can you tell us why AS Purposeful decided to help get neurodiverse young people out into the community?
So what we found, Jo, was that there was a little bit of a gap in some of the services that are available. And there's a lot of really great work that's going on already, particularly in schools and particularly in terms of getting young people who have some kind of additional need out into social activities, often with each other. And all of that is really important and really needs to continue. But in the case of our program, what we also found was that a lot of established community groups that are out there don't have any support for them to include neurodiverse people who are ready for that step. And so even though those young people could probably show up and frankly be fine, sometimes we find that those community groups are a little bit hesitant when they're thinking about how they might proceed, how they might be able to support their, particularly volunteers. There's a little bit of a gap there. And so we've been working quite a bit in the teacher space in education to provide quite specialized tools to teachers. And so we thought that there was an opportunity there to take some of that material and make it more accessible to members of the general public who want to do that inclusion, and then to roll that out so they have a little bit more to go with. They have a little bit more support for themselves, so that they and the young people that they're working with can really have a better experience in those open and inclusive groups like sporting clubs and volunteering organisations and so forth. So it really complements a lot of the stuff that's already out there, and then it is very valuable by adding this extra little bit to bridge the divide where it's possible for young people to be able to make that leap. The parents that are watching, they're the ones that I think that are going to know when that's time for their young person, and so they are able now to be able to go into a community group, and if there's a little bit of concern, provide this this resource as an option, so that they can be a little bit more assurance that the community group they're going to is ready, Jo.
Mm. Well, on that note, I know the course is, you know, meant for community services, but have you got any tips from the materials that you can quickly share with me and the parents today? I'm intrigued.
I had a surprise. It's not a surprise, Jo. I had a feeling that might come up. And so I do have something. We'll probably email this around. I'm sure someone can make this work with the technology. So I'll just flash this and then I'll talk about it. So this is one of the tools that we have for our community groups. I think it's really great for parents as well. And it's about positive participation. And so one of the things that happens a lot, and I was hinting at it before when we were talking about parents, is we're focusing on what needs to happen and what's wrong that we need to be fixing. And so this tool is designed to help us figure out what we can do to focus on the positive aspects of what's occurring. And they can be really small things like a little bit of effort or maybe a positive emotion, even though something might not have gone entirely correctly. And so just having something like that and thinking about the opportunities that might be available to highlight those positive aspects of things for a neurodiverse young person, and also actually for the parents to go, you know what, I actually did some of this as well, and yay me. I think that's really important. And so that, I think, is a really important part of what parents can be doing to support themselves, to support their young person, to really start thinking about what can we be focusing on that's positive. And there are some tips in the tool that we'll send around. So that's the first thing, Jo. And then the second is, I think, moving beyond the course for a second, one of the things that I think would be really helpful for a lot of parents is to keep a gratitude journal, so that when there's a little bit of a challenge, when there are things that are not going so well, I think that's a resource then to be able to look back on and perhaps feel a little bit less overwhelmed, a little bit less anxious about the future, because it's hard to remember all that stuff when things are not going so well, I think, Jo. So I think the tool that we can send around everybody who's here today, and also the gratitude journal, I think that they're really good things that a lot of parents might find useful.
Oh, such great advice, honestly. Now, I know we don't have time for the full course, obviously, but can you tell us a little bit more about what parents will get in this course and be able to share with the community members that they need to get this into their hands of?
So this course really is for those community organisations, and so it takes a bit of a deeper dive into some of the things that work, particularly at the universal level. So if you're running a community service of some kind, you're running, you know, a sporting club or a scouts group or a guides group or whatever, the idea that you're going to be able to stop everything you're doing and do something completely different for one or two people, whatever label they might come in with, I think that's not very realistic. And so this course is really about how we can build better systems and better processes without reinventing the wheel, link into things that we're already doing a little bit of, and then provide a positive structure and some tools for the people that are facilitating that positive structure to be more inclusive, not just of neurodiverse people, but also of any young person. And so particularly given it's Australia Day, I think it'd be good just to think for a second about some of our First Nations young people, because often there is a little bit more of a challenge for some of those young people to feel like they're included, to participate in community services. And so, okay, they might have slightly different challenges, but a lot of these tools that we're talking about, particularly at the universal and the group level, I think they'll be very useful for including other young people with other types of challenges as well. And so to your question, Jo, when we have a parent that thinks that their young person is ready for community participation in an open group, they're probably right. Most parents do actually know that. And so this will provide a little bit of reassurance for that community group if they have any questions. Even if they don't, our partners at Macquarie University ran a survey last year where they actually looked at whether something like this might be suitable for community use. And what they found was 100% of the survey recipients had not had access to some kind of training for this. And so there's a lot of need out there. I think that the parent can then walk in and say, there's actually something that we can do for you, as well as we would like something from this particular, group or service or whatever it is. So the tools are very much designed to help create a more inclusive, positive atmosphere for every young person. And yes, they're going to specifically benefit neurodiverse young people, but it goes beyond that towards other people with other needs, Jo.
I think you're so right, David. And I'm so grateful and thankful that you're putting this out there, because I think the community is crying out for this. There's not a person on the planet that really doesn't want to do the best thing and help, but often parents and coaches and teachers or people in that space just don't know and it's just that learning, the knowledge and the awareness that can help us all, and then help the other kids in the team or the class, and it's just fantastic what you're doing. So I've got to thank you, David.
Thank you
for putting this together.
Thanks, Jo.
Yes, we're so happy about all of this. Thank you, David. Next, we're going to hear from the amazing Judy. Now, Judy is an academic and an activist, and she is, of course, the person who coined the phrase or the term neurodiversity. Well, hello, Judy. Thank you so much for joining us this Australia Day. I wondered, can you explain what neurodiversity exactly means? I know that you originally coined the phrase in a sociology thesis at UTS, the University of Technology, Sydney, in 1998, I believe. But what exactly does neurodiversity mean?
Well, thank you for that question. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming from the land of the Gadigal people, the Eora Nation, and I want to acknowledge their elders past and present, and also to acknowledge that while for us this is Australia Day, for Indigenous people it's Invasion Day, and I'd like to have that recorded or on record.
Acknowledged. Thank you.
And so what is neurodiversity? It's a word I coined based on the concept of biodiversity, which simply argues that the more diverse an ecosystem, the more sustainable it is, and the more flourishing and productive. And I thought, why not take this then very trendy word and combine it with the trendy neuroscience and say, well, actually a neurodiverse society is also a more sustainable society. And I used it basically to name a movement, and which I knew was happening, which was based on the autistic self-advocacy movement, which was a whole new type of identity politics movement.
So the term is more a reference to the movement, is that right? Or have I got that wrong? Or is neurodiverse?
For me it is, but the language is evolving and people are taking it in other directions.
Right, so and it can include a whole range of various elements, can't it? Is that right? Is that my understanding of it?
Well, the idea was that basically I was doing an honours thesis on the on the online autistic self-advocacy movement, which is a very new type of social movement that had never happened before. But we knew that there were other groups, like we used to call them autistics and cousins, but that included people with ADHD, all the DIS sisters, dyslexia, praxia, calculia, and other conditions. And I knew they needed an umbrella term. So that was my idea. And I also wanted to add it to intersectionality. And basically what intersectionality means is simply that, you know, when a government does a census, it looks at, you know, your class, gender, all of those things, disability. And I wanted to include neurodiversity and disability because it was not included in those days. Disability was simply intellectual, physical,
Wow.
and mental illness was what all that was left, was what everyone else did into. We were not mentally ill. So we needed a whole new paradigm, and that's what I called it. It was a name for the paradigm and for the movement. But it has come to mean, for some people, neurodiversity means, and I find this very counterproductive when they use neurodiversity as if it meant neurological disorder, because
Right.
that totally spoils the concept, because it reintroduces it as becomes stigmatized again. I want it to be a principle that we should all aspire to for a neurodiverse society.
Right. Oh,
Neurodiverse culture.
that's so fascinating. So is it actually on the census now? I forgive my lack of knowledge. I feel terrible.
No.
It's still not included. So obviously, as we were just talking about, it has evolved since that 98 thesis. What are the biggest achievements the neurodiversity movement has achieved in that time? And then where would you like to see it go?
Okay. Well, its achievement has been over the last 20 years, and particularly in Europe, particularly in England and the USA, it's now just become a real juggernaut. You know, all the major corporations are now developing neurodiversity policies. And that means what that has achieved is that it's actually, to me, it's humanizing the business world for a start, because instead of, it's humanizing the way they recruit workers. So instead of, you know, their main criteria was always how good are you at eye contact, which is just anathema to people on the autistic spectrum who have got absolute incredible skills in problem solving skills, etc. So it's now about getting work, you call it job criteria that actually match what is expected of the job, not all this extraneous stuff that tests your gift of the gab and your ability to sell yourself. So that's one of the things. And it's also permeating education in terms of, again, adapting to real people and looking at their needs rather than just labeling them with a negative label. I mean, that is really what the movement's all about. Instead of the medical label, which was always just everything that's wrong with you, to a label, not a label, but to looking at both the strengths and the needs of the individual. And we've all got strengths and needs. In that sense, everyone is neurodiverse, but some of us have been excluded for far too long. And I think in the end, everyone benefits. And it's also given people an identity. It's given them a pride movement. And
it has helped a lot. It helped a great deal. You're right. Even in schools today, just the labeling isn't there. It's normal for everyone to have a friend that has this or that, or, you know, it's just another type, isn't it? So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for coining the phrase in the first place, the juggernaut that it is. And I'm sure it's got I'm sure your mind is always ticking away, and you're going to create, continue with the movement. Thank you for joining us, Judy.
A pleasure, absolute pleasure, thanks.
Yes, they're the wonderful Judy, who we are so fortunate has said she will stick around to answer these questions. So speaking of, it is your last chance to submit a question to our panelist here. If you have one, please enter it in the Q&A box now. So we're going to skip ahead and do those with our panelists. It's time for your questions. Now, you have to forgive me. I have to put my glasses on because I'm getting to that age, and have a look at some of these questions that our lovely audience here has for both Judy and David. Okay, David, are you ready? Judy, are you ready?
Yep.
Good-o. All right, this one's for David. Now, this is a question for David from Samantha. Our son's teacher wasn't very cooperative last year. When we go to interviews, it's embarrassing because she focuses on negative examples of his behaviour and isn't offering us any help. Do you have any advice, David?
Okay, thanks for that question. Samantha, was it?
Samantha, yes.
Samantha, thank you for that. So I think, Samantha, the thing to think about here maybe is that your teacher, probably last year's teacher, but by the sounds of this, is actually trying to, in their own way, consult you as the expert on your child. And maybe the thing that could be done, if this were to occur again in this coming year, is to think about getting the teacher talking a little bit more and maybe looking at what their particular needs are. And you might actually find that some of the things that they're experiencing, you've also seen little bits of at home. You might find alternatively that some of the things that are not working for your child's teacher are working for you at home, in which case you can share some of your expertise with them. A lot of teachers and a lot of parents actually say that they really want to spend time working with each other collaboratively. And so perhaps this is a bit of a roundabout opportunity to think about how you can build a stronger relationship with the teacher, even though it might not necessarily be starting off in the place that you would like. That seems like something that might be helpful for the teacher, for you, and for your child. And then I shall give a shameless plug for a second to our teachers program, which I was mentioning to Jo before. We do have some specialist training for teachers, and so that is something which you can read about on our website. So that might also be helpful, Samantha.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. Now, the next one is also for you, David. Question for David from Karen. My daughter is very anxious about joining guides. I imagine that's like Girl Guides or something, which I thought would be so good for her. But now I'm second guessing myself. Oh, big parenting thing, isn't it? You just don't know if you've done the right thing. Can this new training help?
Karen, I think you'll probably find that this training can help a little bit. Guides is already fairly structured, so it's a good fit. I agree with you. This is probably a good step for your daughter. And so in a scenario where they feel over in the guides that they might need a little bit of extra help to get started, this is exactly what this course is for. In terms of your work with your daughter, Karen, maybe the thing to do is to think about this with her more in terms of a trial. It sounds like joining has a little bit of commitment that would be needed from your daughter, and maybe she's not ready for that if she's very anxious. So maybe if we're breaking that down into little steps, we're going to go and check in one time and see what it's like, then we might actually join in another time, and then so on and so on. If we're breaking that down a little bit more, I think that could be helpful for your daughter. But certainly in terms of the people running the guides, if they're looking for a little bit more to help her feel welcome, and I think guides are really good at wanting that, so that may well be something that they would want, then perhaps, Karen, that's something that they would also benefit from. So really two things there. First of all, yes, this course could be helpful for the people that are running the guides group you've got in mind, but also if we're breaking stuff down and reducing the perception of commitment there for your daughter, that might also help a little bit.
Oh, great advice. All right, this question is addressed to Judy. It's from Lee. So Judy, what can we do here in Australia? Oh yeah, I was interested in when you said this about the future of neurodiversity. What can we do here in Australia to get more companies to be inclusive like what's happening overseas? Good question, Judy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because just today I was listening to Dylan Alcott, who was at that wonderful speech, and I hope everybody saw it because it was amazing. He was asked a similar question, what should we do? And he replied, I'm not going to reply in the same way, but he did say, I'm not going to advise you, or words to this effect, because you already know what to do. And I think he was just basically acknowledging that we'd already come so far in advocating for ourselves. And I'm also very mindful that as a parent of an autistic child, now young adult, I know that being a parent is such a full-time job. Being a parent and a breadwinner and an advocate, and there are so many groups you can get involved in. But so what I want to say is that in neurodiversity, I think I said it was a juggernaut overseas, and it's already coming here. Like whatever happens there is happening here as well. You know, we always follow suit, particularly what's going on in England. Everyone is talking about it. It's huge over there. So many companies are already incorporating these policies, and basically it's all simply because of all the discussions and all the energy and pressure that's going into this issue. It's like the more you talk about it, in the more places you talk about it in, whether it's, you know, another parent groups, to your friends, you can start up your own local groups. That's exactly what I did. David knows that the three of us just started as teen, which was, and then David joined later, just using the internet. You can do it via, you know, Facebook or any social media, WhatsApp, whatever. Just find some local people and start getting together and start, I was going to say plotting and planning, but maybe I don't quite mean that. And there are many companies now in Australia. Certainly the government's talking about neurodiversity. I think, I forgot, Senator who's got an autistic son. She's very active in that. So you can talk to your politicians, you can talk to your local councils. What are they doing? In fact, I'm planning to do that in my local council with some companies. There are companies now who are doing what David's doing basically for community organisations, and I think it's such a big need and useful thing to do. But there's heaps and heaps of companies that are going in to Australian corporations. We've got specialist turn here and internet, so it's all happening. I don't think you have to worry. Just whatever time you can find that matters to you, join up with others, find things to do. And the other thing is, don't forget, I always say, don't forget the girls. There's a lot of attention on autistic computer programmers, but it's got to actually go beyond that. And that, I think, is a bit of a frontier everywhere.
Yes, such good advice. I think the Facebook group and just reaching out within your own networks, anyone can do it, can't they? Okay, another question here. It's anonymous and it hasn't said who it's for, so either of you can jump in. What happens in the case of volunteer groups if the leaders think they don't need any advice or act as if the group's unsuitable for the child? Oh, I'm sure a lot of parents have faced this issue. After all, every group surely can't be unsuitable for a child. So that was from an anonymous person. So I guess the question is, what happens if you meet resistance in the group and people don't think they need any advice?
It's possible, in terms of the we don't need any advice, it's possible they're right. Maybe they've got great structures already, and maybe that will be enough. If it's around a little bit of stigma and discrimination, then I think realistically for parents particularly, there's a bit of a balancing act there around can we do a little bit of advocacy and just talk about some of the strengths of our young person, some of the thing we heard from, I think it was David before, about some of the real strengths that both of his children have, and what, just taking it a bit further, what they might be able to deliver if they're part of a community group. So really thinking about the selling points there, and then just seeing where that goes. Ultimately, if you've got a group that really is very resistant to taking someone on or providing support, I think it's fair to say that that might be a real uphill battle. But I think that's actually in the minority. I think most people in most groups actually want to do the right thing. And so speaking to them as if they do want to do the right thing and meeting them where they think they're at, I think would be very useful. But maybe Judy has a comment on that part as well, about meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just got to roll with the punches. I'm not really, because I'm a sociologist, I'm not terribly good at practical advice. So I think you've done it very well, David.
But you said you had a daughter. Did you find, I mean, I guess that was something you may have encountered in your own parenting?
Well, gosh, yes, because no one had even heard of Asperger's when she was young, and we went through, you know, like most parents in my generation, and my daughter's now 34, went through, like, nobody believed us, you know, they blamed us and all that sort of thing. So what I did was I just found myself suddenly becoming a volunteer, getting very involved in school PNCs and earning the trust of the people, of the principal and the other parents, and also starting, as I said before, my own group, which really wasn't hard to do with
to be your own advocate in a way.
yeah, to start a little group or from the people you know, and then watch and then put it out there, and the public will come.
Well, that actually leads into what might be our final question. And this is actually a very important question. I imagine many parents would like some assistance with this. Again, it's anonymous. What other groups are there to assist with young adults? So we so often talk about school age, primary age children, but after the structure and relative safety of school is finished, what next? Great to do our own group, but also tricky with adults as they are less able to get involved, or rather the parent role is expected to be less, yet the needs remain high. So young adults, and they're supposed to work, or I imagine, trying to foster them to earn money, and it's a complex situation.
So I think a couple of things. First of all, the training we're launching today for community groups is actually targeted at people 7 to 24 years of age. So that extends a little bit beyond the end of school. A lot of groups, and I'm thinking specifically of the guys we were just talking about before, they do actually have opportunities that go beyond the end of school, and potentially even for someone to be a helper or a volunteer. So, for example, Meals on Wheels, or again, the Guides, maybe the Scouts, some of those organisations, those local grassroots organisations, really love volunteers. And so I think there's a place there for looking again at what the strengths of the young person might be, and then thinking about how they might be able to play to their strengths in some sort of group or volunteering opportunity. So there is a little bit of structure in their life, there's a little bit of continuity. And then if that's needed, again, we've got a program we're launching today. But the other thing is sometimes the young person, as I think the questioner was hinting at, wants a little bit more independence when they get to that point. And so I'm going to do a shameless plug again. We actually have another service called Ascent Essentials, which again you can find on our website, which is designed to help people who would like to look at what their strengths are, look at some of their challenges, and then marry the two together so they can look at how they can apply their strengths to their challenges. And so that might also be useful in a scenario where a young person is asking for a little bit more independence, but still might need some help to figure out how to participate in something that's being suggested or set up for them.
I know we're wrapping up questions. Well, I'm calling it we're wrapping up questions, but just quickly, I guess on that note, and it might be something you guys don't know, well, maybe we can list it on the website later or something, but are there particular organisations that you know of that are very helpful with employing young adults on the spectrum, or, you know, is there a Coles or a Woolworths or a something that are very known to be very good?
Well, I might add a few things there. Well, first of all, you can ring up and ask, and I know that, you know, Coles and Coles, I know, have got policies and are adapting to some extent, but a lot of the big companies, again, they're IT companies, but it's a start. I know that IBM has a fabulous neurodiversity division. You look up their website and look up neurodiversity, see what they're doing, and generally do a search online. Deloitte's, they're another one that's doing it. So yes, it's all starting to happen, and I guess a lot of them will say it on their websites.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for helping answer those questions, Judy and David. I know we would love to stay here and chat with the parents all day, because I'm sure there are so many questions that you all have, and as Judy was saying, if her advice is to just get in amongst your communities on Facebook chats and reach out to the council, they're all really good tips. We are just about to wrap up. Before we go, we want to remind you about the new course that we've been talking about and that we've launched here today. We hope it will be a huge help to your young neurodiverse person. AS Purposeful has developed the Aspire for Communities course, that's what it's called, to help these community groups become better at including neurodiverse kids and young adults, not to just those, specific young people, but also to benefit groups as a whole and also the wider community. I mean, the more we know, the more knowledge we have, the better we'll all be, right? So best of all, I love this, it costs nothing. No sell here. It is free for these community groups as it is Commonwealth funded, and that's fantastic news. As a parent or family member, you can encourage your local community group. And I can't imagine many you would meet with much resistance. I think most community groups are, wanting to activate themselves in this space, so they can sign up. You just have to ask them. We need you parents, we need you to rally for your young neurodiverse person and introduce this to these community groups who would have no idea that these are out there, and in turn benefit all the kids in the classes and the wider community, of course. The course will be available from Jan 31, so that's Jan 31. And bonus, everyone who attended today will be emailed a poster that promotes the course, and that will be easy to give to your local community group to get them interested. Well, that's it for our webinar, everyone. Whew, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend. We appreciate everyone, who was here today. Look out for that poster and all about the course in your inbox. And we'll be emailing the winners of our random draw who've won a $50 JB Hi-Fi gift card. Yay! So we'll email the winners of that draw. Special thanks, of course, to our panelists and team behind the scenes. Naomi to my left, who made sure that I could still be here, beaming in with you. And of course, Alison, who's coordinating it all behind the scenes, and the fabulous parents who we interviewed earlier, Ian and David. Take care and enjoy the remainder of your Australia Day. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.